Hello, Internet. I am going to talk about a topic that I think is really important, and that is called the 3 kinds of laziness. And we might not think of all 3 of these things as laziness when we first think about it, but the point is that these are kind of the same nature of problem, and they're things that impact our spiritual practice, but these kinds of laziness also can impact us in all sorts of ways outside of our spiritual practice as well. So, and I'm going to talk about these, and I'm not going to talk a lot about how we deal with them, because I think I'm going to save that for another talk. So, no one ask in the comments, but what do I do? Noticing them is the first step, and I'm going to do a later video that's going to talk about how to manage these types of laziness. So, the first kind of laziness is what we think of as laziness traditionally. That is just I don't want to get out of bed in the morning. That is and in our meditative context, that would be, I'd rather sit on the couch than get up and go meditate. Or I'd rather stay in bed longer than get up and go to the temple or go meditate. Or in whatever situation we're in, I'd rather do nothing than go meditate. And in a regular context, that is just our tendency to not do things that we know we need to do. So, in my experience, there was a time when I spent a lot of time going to the gym, and I got lazy and I stopped doing that. I just stopped even though I knew it was a good thing to do. And it's the same with all sorts of things that we know we should do that we don't want to take the time to do. That's what the first kind of laziness is. It's just knowing we should do something, and we don't want to take the time to do it. We would rather stay in bed longer. We would rather veg on the couch or whatever. I really think of the way my cats will just lay in the sunlight, just splayed out. I kind of think of that sometimes when I think of the first kind of laziness. So, the second kind of laziness is a little bit deeper, and that is a sense of unworthiness. A sense of, I like to call it can't win, don't try. It's our sense that I don't think I can accomplish this, so I'm just not going to do it. So we might not think of that as laziness at first, but it really does come from the same kind of root. So in our Buddhist practice, we might think, I know a lot of people think, I wish I could meditate, but when I sit, I just cannot calm my mind down. I just cannot slow down my thoughts. They just keep coming and coming. So people with that experience, sometimes they just give up. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about, I think I'm not good enough to successfully meditate, or I think I'm not good enough to, also this can apply to compassion practices too. People can think, I'm not good enough to be kind to others, because people can have this kind of label they have on themselves, like, I'm an angry person, I have a bad temper. Then we think, well, that's something I can't work on because that's who I am. So that's another form of laziness. We're saying I can't do it, so I'm not going to try. And I think of things like, if a friend needs help moving, I think I have very weak arms. I can't help somebody move, so then I don't try to help my friend move, even though, of course, there's all sorts of things I can lift. I'm not broken, but I still can think of that as a form of laziness and use that as an excuse. And that's what this is really about. It's about making an excuse, saying, I'm not going to do this because I'm not good enough. That's my excuse. And I also think of applying for promotions in my job, too. I worked in the same position for 8 years, and I applied for promotions. Most of those years I was applying for promotions and not getting them, so I could have easily just been really discouraged and thought, well, I'm not good enough to get a promotion, I guess I'm here forever. But eventually that did, after 8 years, work out for me, and I did get a promotion. But I think that's what a lot of us do when there's opportunities in our workplace. We think, well, I'm not good enough for that promotion, so I'm not going to try. And that's really what the second kind of laziness is about. It's about, I can't win, so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to give up before I even start. And third kind of laziness is really probably not something we think of as laziness. And that is just, we're not doing the things we need to do, or the things that we really know are good for us, such as our mindfulness practices. And the reason we're not doing them is because we have made ourselves too busy. And I think this has a really big extra layer of meaning in the modern world that it didn't always have, but it does show that people are always kind of the same, because in 1,000 years ago people were thinking about this problem too. So what do I mean? I mean, we get caught up in bullshit. We get caught up in doing things that aren't necessarily important, and that takes us away from doing what we should do. I like to think of checking my Facebook. So I wake up in the morning, I check my Facebook, I scroll through a bunch of stuff, I check my email, I spend time doing that stuff instead of getting up and meditating right away. But I don't need to do that. There's nothing pressing in my email or my Facebook, so I think of that as a form of laziness that affects meditation practice. But another thing is just, if I'm keeping myself too busy, then I don't have time to go to the temple and sit with other people too. That can happen too. So how many things in our life do we do instead of the things that we think we should do? People say, I wish I could meditate, but I'm too busy. And that is really silly, because I think just meditating 5 minutes a day can be useful. Or even 5 minutes twice a week can be useful. So for people to say I don't have time to meditate, that makes no sense to me. I know some famous Buddhist teacher said, if you have time to breathe, you have time to meditate. And I think that's really true. I think that we all have time to meditate, and we should be doing it. And then this applies in ordinary life as well. Of course, how many times do we hear about being at a party or being with friends and being stuck in your phone? Paying attention to your phone, being distracted, because we tend to think this is a thing we need to do when it's not. And I can't say that the internet is bad or having a phone is bad. I'm talking to you on a phone right now, but we have a kind of attachment to it, and we think we need to do it when we don't. It pulls us away, not only from things that we think will make us a better person, but also from things that we actually want to do, like interacting with our friends. It pulls us away from that too. So that is really how I think about the third kind of laziness. It is just getting distracted, filling all our time with things, whether it's our phone or the internet or TV. We have all sorts of ways to distract ourselves with that people didn't have even 100 years ago, and it can really be a detriment to our lives a lot of the time. So those are the three kinds of laziness, and I think the first step to really dealing with them is just realizing they're there. We all suffer from these three kinds of laziness, and they distract us from the things that we need to do and the things we want to do. And really just noticing them is the first step. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. I'll be back with another one sometime soon.